Hello and welcome to the Too Much Apparently podcast. If you're new here, this is a podcast for the deeply feeling, overthinking, emotionally overloaded humans who've been told they're too much apparently. And if you're back, thanks for choosing to sit with us again.
We're Alice and Carly, two therapists who are also just sensitive weirdos trying to make sense of life, healing, and our own brains. This isn't a professional advice podcast. It's more like the messy, honest conversations that happen when you finally feel safe enough to say what you're really thinking.
This space is for people like us, the ones who've been called too sensitive, too serious, too emotional, too intense, and have spent way too long believing that it's true.
Okay, on with the episode.
Today we're diving into what it's like to crave depth in a world that seems obsessed with staying on the surface.
You know, when people say, lighten up, or it's not that deep, and you're just standing there like, actually, it is that deep, and I'd like to talk about it for the next 2 hours, thanks.
We're going to explore the beauty and the burden of seriousness, the loneliness that comes when people can't meet you there, and why depth can feel so nourishing and so rare.
This isn't about hating small talk. Well, maybe a little, but it's more about making space for the big talk too, the stuff that actually makes us feel connected.
So whether you're the therapist friend, the emotional support human, or just someone who would rather skip how's the weather and go straight to how's your soul, you're in the right place. So Carly, I think I know the answer to this, but have you ever been mid-conversation, nodding along, talking about the weather while screaming internally, can we please talk about something that actually matters?
Daily. Then I'll joke about mortality or bring up human suffering or mention my latest existential spiral. Only to be stared at like, you've just killed the vibe.
Oh, I totally get that one. I open my mouth, say something deep, and then silence. The room just goes quiet.
Welcome to our lives.
So when did you realize that you didn't like small talk? Was it something that you have always known, it's always kind of been there in the background, or have you had one moment that stood out where you're like, oh yeah, no, this is not for me? How's it been for you?
I've known that I struggle with small talk since I was a teenager. I remember feeling that awkwardness during those conversations, not knowing what to say, what I'm supposed to ask next. I'm feeling a lot of pressure on myself to get it right, or even not just get it right, but just speak, speak, and just not really knowing what else to say next. So I think I've always known that I have struggled with it. I've not really thought about it in terms of whether or not I enjoy it until later years. I think it was more I struggle. I struggle with this. I find this hard, but I don't think in my teens I related that to small talk, just I struggled to talk.
Yeah.
And it's only in later years, I don't even know when, I'd maybe guess 20s, that I started to realize it was small talk that I was struggling with. But I would say realizing and owning that it's not just I struggle with it, but also I don't like it. Like they feel like different things to me. I struggle with it and I don't like it.
Yeah.
I would say it's only maybe in recent years, 5-ish years or so, that I realized, I also don't like it. And I also own that, and it is okay that I don't like it. So that bit's more recent.
Yeah, okay, that sounds like a really interesting distinction. And I'm literally just kind of thinking about how is it for me as you're saying that. I struggle with it. I think sometimes I can do a good job of coming across as if I don't struggle with it. I've definitely had feedback from people where they're like, oh, I had no idea. But again, that sort of internal process is very different. Just thinking about whether I enjoy it or not. So I definitely struggle with it, and that makes it hard to enjoy it. But I think there are parts of me that wish I could do it so that I could enjoy the more surface level when I'm around people that prefer to socialize on that level, just so that it wasn't so hard. Not that I want to stay up there forever, but just to make it easier and more enjoyable. When I was thinking about my kind of history with small talk, if you like, I felt like I just completely drew a blank. And I wonder if part of this for me is that I avoided a lot of it when I was younger by just reading all of the time. So, like, even in my primary school playground, when my best friend joined our primary school, I think I was about 9. She came with her mum for a look around the school. They came out into the playground, and her mum apparently said, "Oh, look at that girl over there reading a book. She looks like a nice girl." So I just feel, so all the other kids would be kind of playing, and I would be there, heading a book. And it just felt kind of really hard to grasp. I remember one thing that popped into my head was a conversation about plucking your eyebrows.
Okay.
I just remember being sat in the science classroom talking about plucking eyebrows and just feeling a bit like, I just don't get this. um, and then when I met my first serious boyfriend, I moved out to live with him and 3 of his friends. And they would have like the first 8 Fridays after we moved in, they had a party every single Friday night. I was so tired by the end of it. But also it was really nice because people would just have like really long, and obviously they'd be drunk, and that always kind of, changes the dynamic a bit. But yeah, they'd have these kind of long and deep, kind of meaningful conversations. And I just remember that feeling like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I want to, this is how I want to be. This is what I want to talk about. And I think I always have been a serious, not that I don't have a silly side, but I definitely can be quite a serious person. So as an 18-year-old, I spent a lot of my spare time moderating a debate forum where we would have kind of long, we'd sort of set the topic and people would debate different issues. And I really enjoyed doing that. And I also was part of an online diary website where we'd have people sharing like their kind of deepest things, and actually met 2 really good friends from that, which was nice. I suppose this, the thing for me around small talk is the cost of getting it wrong, but then the reward of getting it right.
Yes, the reward part.
Yeah, because that feeling when you say something and it just doesn't land, like I can feel it in my body. I can feel it. It's like in my stomach and in my arms of like, oh, not again, kind of feeling. But then when you take a risk and it pays off, I feel like that's where you can really find really meaningful friendships. Is that, I'm not quite sure how I want to say that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. For me, when it pays off, it's when people laugh.
Oh,
So I would get really like do a little happy dance inside when I'd said something and everybody laughed at
yeah.
it.
Hmm.
But the hardest thing for me is when I say something that's funny where other people laugh. I do that classic laughing at my own joke. So I'm often like really laughing along, like, ha, I'm
Yeah.
so hilarious. Look
Yeah.
at me, check me out.
Hmm.
When everybody else is laughing, I think I used to take a lot of stock in, yeah, when people would laugh at something that I said, like that's really winning socially,
Yeah.
because I'm bringing joy. People are
Yeah.
going to like me if I'm
Yeah.
fun to be around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, when I would get something right through laughter, that was like a real like, yes, I'm doing this thing well.
Yeah. And that makes me think about the difference between being people laughing with you versus laughing at you.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, no, I get that kind of people laughing along with you. And I laugh at my own jokes. Yeah.
I
They're
do all
funny.
the time.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'm hilarious.
Right. Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
were saying before, I wanted to interject, but I thought I'd wait because I was really interested to see what you were saying. Yeah, before when you said you want to be able to be good at small talk
Yeah.
because of what that would yield socially, I found that quite interesting and it made me reflect a little bit on, how do I feel about that? And I would say I feel like there's 2 parts of me. There's one part of me that would like to be good at small talk. And I think the reason that part of me exists is because I would like in certain situations to not feel on the outside. I think the reason I would like to be good at it is so I can stop feeling on the outside in those situations.
Yeah.
But another part of me doesn't want to be good at it because I don't actually value that way of speaking. And I would like everybody else to try and get more deep, please.
Yeah, I also would like that. Maybe I just kind of see it as that's never going to happen, I suppose. I feel like I spent a long time inviting people to depth.
Yes, yes, yes.
but it never really works out.
I love the way you phrased that then, inviting people to depth,
Yeah, yeah.
because I have done that a lot. Never really phrased it that way before, but essentially that's what I have done many, many times, and
Mhm.
people just don't get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's challenging.
Mhm.
When you were answering the question, I noticed how you pretty much straight away went into like childhood, as we're sort of reflecting back where this came from.
Mhm.
And knowing that this was what we were going to be talking about, I was doing some thinking. And straight away, childhood is where my mind went to when I was thinking about small talk and how it feels conversationally, but also socially, meaning, connection, belonging, all of those things, being about feeling on the inside or outside. And I remember one of the things that I've struggled with the most is feeling on the outside, particularly in family gatherings. I don't often feel I am the same as my family. I think they all converse through small talk
Mhm.
and that more sort of surface level. How are you? How's work? What you
Yeah.
been up to? What's new? Those sorts of things. But I just don't really know how to actually answer.
Yeah.
So I would say for a long time, that then means that I felt different or on the outside in terms of those family gatherings because of just not really knowing how to do that, putting a lot of pressure on myself as a child, teenager,
Mhm.
even today, actually, to try to feel a bit more connected with family. But as a child and teenager, I think I don't know if this was the moment, but what came up for me in a memory is the moment that I realized that depth lit me up is when I started to walk to the bus stop for school with these two older girls. So they were in sixth form. I can't actually remember how old I was, but I was quite a few years younger than them, maybe 13, 14, and they were like in sixth form. There was two of
Mhm.
them. And I started to walk with them in the morning on the way to the bus stop.
Mhm.
And they were like older. And I mean, they weren't cool people. I don't know how else to phrase that.
Mhm.
They were probably also like a bit nerdy, but I just felt really cool walking to the bus stop with like sixth formers.
Mhm.
But what I really loved about my walks with them to the bus stop is we would talk about things that I just didn't get to speak about in other circles. My walk to my bus stop was actually pretty decent. It wasn't 5 minutes, I don't know, 15 minutes, maybe even 20 at my slow pace. It was a decent walk. And we would spend the whole walk ending up debating pretty deep topics or at least interesting topics. So I very much remember one topic and getting home feeling so, I don't even know what the word is, like giddy inside, just like really warm and like, oh, I don't know. I just remember the feeling of getting home after one particular conversation. Oh, what if the color red that I see isn't the same color red
Mhm.
that you see? What if I see it as red, but you see it as green, but you've been told that green is red. So you say that's red, but you actually see green. And we're both saying that's red, but we're seeing a different color. And it blew my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. And we ended up talking about that the whole time. And that essentially leads to the nature of reality and our individual realities. And I just got home just being like, that was just such a mind opening conversation. And
Mhm.
I just felt really lit up inside. And we had a few more conversations along those sorts of threads every time we walked to the bus stop, just thinking about these different things. And I feel like that was the first time that I really recognized that, oh, like these sorts of conversations are what really light me up.
Like, oh yeah, that sounds really nice to be able to have those deeper conversations with those people. So, if we're talking about not small talk, what are we talking about? We're talking about having those deeper conversations. So, what is it that makes a conversation deep, and what is it that makes that so
I
difficult?
wonder if everyone would define that a little bit differently as to what that means for them. Perhaps there's a universal sort of truth in what depth and conversation mean, and then also what it means to everyone as an individual. For me, I think conversational depth is one of two things. The first one is conversations that go beneath the surface to something that feels real. That for me is about vulnerability. So it's about the other person or two people being able to be vulnerable enough to share and speak their messy truths, their deeper thoughts, the things that they might worry that they'll be judged for, maybe even feel sort of shame about, not sure how someone, oh, will people still like me? All of those innermost thoughts and feelings that we often might keep inside, when we're able to sit with another person and share those things, bring all of the thoughts, all of the feelings, there's just so much realness in that for me, that I can then feel connected to that person in a way that I would never be able to feel connected to anyone who could not offer me that.
Yeah.
And that's not always, hi, nice to meet you, what's your childhood trauma?
Yeah.
But even just someone being able to just say honestly what it is that's going on for them right now. When you say, hey, how's it going? And someone goes, you know what, actually things are really crap at the moment. I'm dealing with this and this is going on. It's like, oh, okay, some realness.
Mm-hmm.
So there's levels of depth. And I'm not saying we've got to get right in there at, the deepest end of the pool, so to speak. But we need to not be on the surface. We've got to be under the surface for me to start to feel connection. So I would say conversational depth, first thing, vulnerability, going beneath the surface. And then the second thing is more what relates to my example from school and walking to the bus stop. So that's then conversations that really just spark curiosity and intrigue, thought provoking ideas, pondering the meaning of things. So anything from philosophy to what's at the edge of the universe to what is reality, the impact of trauma, mortality, humanity, human suffering, current events, etc., etc., etc. But that also to me is conversational depth, and I feel they're the conversations that then make me feel like lit up, like it's just an interesting conversation to me. It's not, I don't find that boring at all. It's the same as what I really love listening to people talk about what they're passionate about. Even if I know nothing about it or I'm not interested in it myself, someone could talk to me for an hour about all the different types of trees. I don't know, it could be anything. But if they're really passionate about it and they're lit up as they're talking about it, I get so sucked in and I just love listening to them talk about it. So I would say those things are what come up when you ask me that question.
Yeah. Yeah, I can really relate to that feeling of lighting up and, seeing other people light up when they talk about what's interesting for them. What comes up for me is, I think what sits behind the conversation for me a lot of the time is, who are you really? And do you really see me? And that's what I'm interested in, not this kind of on the surface social dance that no one's ever taught me the steps to, but just a fascination with people. Like when I think about the films and TV shows that I like to watch are all about people and who are they and how do they work, and the books that I like to read and all sorts of things like that. Just a general fascination with people and how they are, and wanting to know more. And I don't think I want to put this bit in the actual podcast, but where my mind's gone to is like, Alice, it's connection. You spent your whole life looking for connection that you didn't get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep it in, because I think that is what it is. That's at the heart of. So I think for people like you and I, depth is the gateway to connection.
Right. Yeah.
And being so interested in people and in humans, and really wanting to know, okay, who are you really? Like, absolutely, I relate with that. Yeah, I've really wanted to know people and to be known by people.
Right. And I think that's what makes the difference. When I think about people that stay on that kind of social level, is that's not what they're looking for. Maybe they want to know people, although that's how they see it in their mind. But that my experience is that there's a real hesitation about being known. And that it just feels like, so where I said earlier about inviting that depth, is it just kind of meets a bit of a roadblock.
Yes, yeah. But I think that's where it comes back to vulnerability. Because in order to be able to allow yourself to be known, means sitting within the vulnerability of, will that be accepted or will that be
Mm-hmm.
rejected?
Mm-hmm.
So if a lot of people have barriers in place to being known,
Mm-hmm.
also trying to be a bit nuanced here, because this is how you and I see it. There may well be people in the world who feel that they don't need that depth
Yeah.
to feel connection and to feel known. I mean, when I think about it, I think that
Mm-hmm.
can't be possible. People who are just
Right.
surface level just must not really feel that level of connection and meaning.
Right.
They
I
must
can't
just be
comprehend
terrified
it.
of it.
Yeah.
And you should try and bring those walls down, and maybe they're
Yeah.
missing out. But I think in reality, there are probably people who maybe not just don't want that, but maybe also don't need that. Maybe they don't need that to feel
Mhm.
belonging and connection. I don't. It's hard for me to see, but I feel like it must be the case.
Yeah, I can't really comprehend it. I don't really understand how you can feel so connected. I'm just thinking about depth of connection, and depth comes from vulnerability. It comes from repeatedly being vulnerable with somebody and experiencing that they can tolerate that, or hopefully even, more than tolerate it, appreciate it, value it. Um, so yeah, I don't really understand that. But I do have people in my life that aren't really interested in that. And I suppose what I think is maybe there just isn't that depth of even thinking. Like of course we're thinking about, you know, thinking deeply about how they are. But when I think, the kind of people that I have in my mind, yeah, they just wouldn't think about it. They would just live their life.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Just live their life. I mean, we're thinking deeply about depth.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And they might not even think about
Yeah.
depth.
Yeah.
But it is hard to comprehend. I feel like I
Mhm.
had a thought there, but it may have. It's like, oh,
Mm.
I can't grab you. Where have you gone? Anyway.
Yeah. My mind went to there isn't a right way to be, that it's fine. If you're someone who doesn't enjoy that depth, doesn't enjoy that connection, doesn't want to be vulnerable, doesn't want to, deeply emotionally connect with someone, that's fine. And you might not be my kind of person, you know, that,
Yeah.
that there's something about knowing who your people are.
I remember what my thought was that flew away.
Mhm.
I was wondering if there's something about whether it's about your personality, whether it's how your nervous system and brain operate, whether it's about neurodivergence or past trauma life experiences. I wonder if there's something about if you have had a sense of difference or of not belonging or have been on the outside, whether there then becomes that real focus on meaning and depth in relationship and wanting to know and be known. But if you're not someone that's ever felt on the outside and you've always felt on the inside, maybe the need for more
Mm.
doesn't come into play, and then maybe
Mm.
things feel okay. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure what I'm saying there, but it was just a thought that came into my head.
It feels a bit chicken and egg.
Yeah.
It kind of feels a bit chicken and egg. Yeah. Which comes first, the needing the depth or feeling excluded because you're so deep? Yeah. There's
Yeah.
something kind of chicken and egg
About that.
there.
What I love about our chats and a couple of other people in my life is we'll meet or we'll join to have a call. And I really love conversations with a few people in my life where suddenly we find we've literally gone straight into a deep chat straight away. And it's only like
Mm.
an hour into the chat that we're suddenly like, oh, wait, oh, yeah. And how are you? Because we've literally just gone boom, just
Yeah.
straight into this whole like big thing before we've even
Mm-hmm.
done, that social dance of the types of things you say when you very first sort of are greeting someone.
Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
that. I love that so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. That sounds very much like us, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We sat talk, we 2 hours deep before we're like, oh, should we order some dinner at some point?
I know, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
A few themes that have come up around it feels like we can't talk about depth without talking about vulnerability, connection, belonging, feeling known, feeling seen, feeling heard. A lot of those things seem to all be interconnected. And it reminds me of there's a quote that I've always really loved from Brené Brown, who's like the queen of vulnerability. But a quote of hers that I really like is that vulnerability is the birthplace of connection.
Mm.
And that's something that when I heard, I was like, oh, that's really put into words how I feel about what I need for connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so, two people have to be willing to be vulnerable to have the depth, I think, that is required for that real connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It feels like not a lot of people can be there and do that.
Yeah. I don't know where my mind has gone off to football fans.
All right, then, let's see where this one goes.
Because well, I'm thinking about belonging, and I'm thinking about, I suppose what I've got sort of got going on in the back of my mind is, where do other people find belonging if it's not through depth like this? If it's not through conversational depth, emotional depth, where do they find belonging? And what popped into my head is being a football fan and belonging to your team, and finding connection that way, that there is a sense of connection in that.
That's a
Um,
really great point. The tangent was valid.
yeah. And, and other kind of other ways as well, being part of the same political party or some other kind of association. But yeah, I suppose there is something about, so you can have a sense of belonging, but I'm imagining myself now standing outside Old Trafford with a Manchester United shirt on and thinking like, oh, right, yeah, okay, I belong here. But do I feel, no, I still need that emotional depth. I think I'm just a very emotional person, and that's really what I value.
For me, that speaks to different types of belonging. When you were talking about football fans and belonging to different sorts of groups, that made me think of belonging in the sense of community
Mm-hmm.
versus that individual
Yeah.
belonging and importance. Like I feel important and known
Mm-hmm.
to you as an individual
Mm-hmm.
versus what feels like community
Mm-hmm.
belonging, like feeling part of humanity
Mm-hmm.
as a whole.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's how other people experience it. Maybe that's where other people do get their sense of belonging through community. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
that is more valued to them than that individual
Yeah.
belonging
Mm-hmm.
is less important. I mean, it's still going to be important, but I guess important in a way that is different to what it is for you and I. And maybe
Yeah.
community belonging is important because I love that sense of community belonging. I get it if I go to a concert and we're all singing the same lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, all these thousands of people are singing the same lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
That to me feels like I'm part of something
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if we're talking about different types of belonging and
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. And actually, as you're talking there, where my mind is going to is about culture, and the way that Western culture is very individualized, much more individualized than it ever was before. And so there is a valuing of ourselves. I don't know if that's how I want to say it. I think that just makes more space for that. Again, kind of coming back to those questions that I said about who are you really, and do you
Mm.
see me? Is that so? Yeah, so you can have that belonging, that kind of collective, the community, but then there's also still the depth in that. Is how much of me are you willing to show me, and how much of me can I show you, and we stay connected and stay present.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wonder how it is in other cultures where that isn't, that it is more collective rather than individual. How depth is seen there.
That would be interesting. Be
Yeah.
interesting if for anyone listening who maybe lives in a different part of the world where where connection and community is still really strong and hasn't been individuated yet.
Hmm. Hmm.
I would just find that really interesting then to know more about that individual relational
Hmm.
depth within the context of a very connected,
Hmm.
supported
Hmm.
community where there's more connection there.
Hmm. I
When
love
you,
how we've gone super deep on an episode about small talk.
I know we are so far off our plan.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
Yeah.
let's make sure we just talk about these points, and if we've not even moved, we're still
Yeah.
talking about this.
Yeah.
We'll probably be able to make 5 episodes just on
Right.
depth.
Yeah. Hmm.
When you were talking about the different levels of how much do you see me, how much
Hmm.
am I known by you, and are you known by me? earlier when you were talking about that invitation for depth, I can't remember how you put it now, but that invitation for depth and people not really taking that. There's so many times in my life where I've wanted to move down a level of the knowing. You know, right, let's see if we can knock down the ladder, like reach that next level of understanding where I've tried to invite and initiate that depth. And you put forth a question or something, and someone kind of answers it, but not really, or they give you a little bit, and then before you know it, they've changed the topic, or now they've gone off over here. And I'm like, oh, I wanted to stick there. I wanted to find out
Yeah.
more about that, but that person, for whatever reason, discomfort, I don't know, has moved, and they've taken it somewhere else. And then there's always that, just that pang of sadness, actually, I'd
Yeah.
say, and maybe even loneliness that then
Yeah.
comes up in those moments, because it feels like a real missed opportunity. And I want to be clear, this isn't about getting people to talk about things they don't want to talk about, or it's not about being where
Yeah.
I'm being intrusive. It's when I've got a long standing friendship with somebody and they're
Yeah.
talking about something I feel at this level in our friendship, I would like you to be able to be open about,
Yeah.
and they can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I was picturing it, picturing the conversation as you were talking about it. And for me, it's often that self-deprecating humor that comes in. So they'll touch on something that is quite deep, but they'll go something like, "Oh, but I'm so silly. Ha 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 ha." And like,
Yep.
oh, the moment's gone. And I'm thinking about that loneliness. And I think I've properly got my therapist hat on here, but thinking about how lonely they must be because of the shame that takes them to that, kind of laughing it off. Like, oh, it's
Yes.
not it's not a big deal. But actually an unintended consequence of them doing that is to do something that makes the person that they're talking to feel lonely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's the deflection through laughter. And the other
Mm-hmm.
one I get a lot is, oh, but everything's fine now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, yeah, but it's fine. I'm over it now. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, you're not there, are you?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's
Yeah.
that, this really bad thing happened last week and I was really upset about it. And then I'm like wanting to
Yeah.
go into to talk about it. And they go, oh, but it was last week. I'm all right now.
Yeah. I think I do that one.
Do
I feel
you?
like I recognize myself in that. Yeah. And it comes from years of being hyper independent, of, of feeling like too much for people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I will kind of, yeah, I can have a tendency when I'm feeling particularly vulnerable about something to be like, oh, but don't worry about me. I can handle myself. I'm not going to be too much for you. Yeah,
Yes.
I really recognize myself in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
relate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, maybe just to give an example, can you think of one conversation you've had that really felt like food for your soul?
Yeah, yeah. So it will have been one of the first few times that we met up in person. So obviously we'd been part of this business coaching group that we were in together and knew each other on that, probably more surface level business kind of level. So it's one of the first few times that we met up in person. And you were talking about having a hard time in your relationship. And as you were telling me about it, you started to cry. And for me, that was just a real moment of, oh, she really trusts me with this. And it really just felt like an honor to be let in and really hear what was going on for you. I think if therapists hear one thing a lot, it's, oh, I'm sorry for crying. Sorry.
Yes.
Whereas for me, I'm like, bring on the tears. That's how I know we've made real connection. So yeah, that felt like a
Yes.
real turning point in our friendship for me.
I probably
Yeah.
did that to you then. I probably said, oh, I'm sorry for getting upset.
Maybe. It
I
was it
don't
was
know.
nice though. It was nice. Yeah, it was just really nice. It just felt like seeing the real you.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine in my mind thinking we've only met a few times in
Mm.
person. So in my mind, there was probably,
Yeah.
oh, she's come for a nice time. And here I am just crying at
Mm.
her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, she's not going to want to come again. It does
Mm.
bring up all of those feelings. And That is why it's hard to be vulnerable. That's, that's what we're saying we want. And at the same time, knowing, okay, we will do it. Not always. As you said, sometimes there's that, oh, but I'm fine now. So we're not saying that we're immune to this and we don't do it, because of course we do. But I do think we will take more risk. But, when we're doing it, we're not comfortable when we're doing it.
Right.
And perhaps that's part of this for anyone that also recognizes that they struggle with it. It's not getting comfortable with being vulnerable so then you can be vulnerable with people and have connection. It's knowing that being vulnerable is uncomfortable, and can you do it anyway?
Yes.
Because even in that moment where I was worrying about really like crying in front of you and, talking about all this difficult stuff when we'd only met a few times, what you've shared, which is really lovely to hear, is you were thinking, oh, she trusts me, and this really feels like it's solidifying something in our friendship. And so something really positive can come from that uncomfortableness and sitting in that vulnerability, especially when it's with the right person.
Yeah. And just because you feel uncomfortable while it's happening, which I think is true of anybody, that it is uncomfortable to be vulnerable, it doesn't mean the other person is uncomfortable with it. Because I wasn't at all. I just,
Well, that's where we're projecting, isn't it? I'm uncomfortable, so they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
One thing that's really making me giggle over here is, so how we have started to do these podcasts is just have a loose plan with different headings of what we would like to move through. I think that's about 7 points, is there, that we want to?
Yeah,
6. So there's 6 main points before we were like bringing it to a close. For anyone who's curious, we're still on point 2. And we're like quite far in now. Is before we need to draw this to a close, and we've literally only got to part 2.
Yeah. So I really thought this episode was going to be a kind of surface level episode because we're talking about surface level small talk. But no, we are deep. Yeah.
Like I said earlier, we're going deep on the depth. So much so that we've not got past our second point. So it feels, I feel like we still have so much more to say.
So much more.
Do you think we just make this a 2-parter?
Absolutely make this a 2-parter.
Perhaps we carry on with our other points and just make it a part 1 and a part 2.
Yeah. So what will we start with next week?
Well, continuing next week, if we're going to pause there, think of this episode as a pause rather than coming to a close. We will look at the beauty and the burden of craving and wanting depth and struggling with that small talk. When that hurts, we've spoken a little bit about feeling lonely or that disconnection or not feeling known and seen. So I think it's important we speak a bit about what that actually feels like.
Yeah. And also starting to have a look at how, if you're somebody that wants depth in relationship, how you might start to move from small talk more towards depth without diving in at the deep end.
Absolutely. I think that will be helpful, as well as making peace with being someone who wants depth. And that actually, that is okay. That's a great way to be in the world. We've spent a whole episode talking about how we want people to be able to do this more. So if we're going to do that, we need to embrace that this is who we are. This is how we want to be in the world.
Yeah, so being at peace with it and deeply valuing you exactly as you are.
Well, we will bring it to a close and we'll see you for part 2.
That's all from us today. If this episode made you feel a bit less alone, the best way to help us reach more people is to subscribe, rate the podcast, and follow Too Much Apparently on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Those simple clicks help other sensitive humans find us when they need it most. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon.